Sorry, it is one of the most powerful words in the English language, and more in corporate Australia, executives are apologising. Peter Wilkinson, Woolworths, the latest in the news, issuing a public apology for underpaying staff.
Yes, and I understand there are going to be a lot more companies. They're going to be caught out underpaying staff as they go back through the accounts. The thing there is, I'm cynical about apologies on their own. I'm not referring to Woolworths when I say this, but I'm cynical about apologies. I think Australians have a very strong nose for BS, and what people require is not just an apology, but a delivery of results very quickly to demonstrate that the apology is genuine. Otherwise, Australians are very quick to dismiss it as hollow.
Absolutely. So there's three elements to an apology?
There are three, for me, I look for three elements, and I think it's a really valuable way to assess a company. The first is the apology itself. You've actually got to, and you've got to apologise to the right person. If you've done something horrible to a particular individual, you've got to speak to the individual first before you go public. It's a bit silly to apologise in public when you haven't actually spoken to...
That's just spin, it's rubbish, isn't it?
Well, it can be dismissed that way very quickly by Australians. And the classic case is Dreamworld, of course, where a lot of people will remember that Deborah Thomas held a press conference and was caught out publicly apologising for the deaths of the people at Dreamworld in that tragic accident, but actually hadn't spoken to the people who were the families of the victims. And instantly Australians saw in that case there was an element, or perceived there was an element of hollowness in the apology. So that's the first point. You've actually have to apologise to the right people, and it's got to be genuine. The second is you've got to follow through. You've got to show that you've either held an investigation that is going to deliver results, or if you know what the results need to be, you've actually started implementing them before the apology. And the third is you mustn't repeat the mistake that led to the apology to start with. Australians have a great tolerance for companies and individuals that are seen to do the right thing, but are very quick to cut off people that are seen to be fraudulent.
Absolutely, yeah. You make a mistake once, don't make it twice. One of the great examples, I think, is Steve Smith. His apology was genuine. The tears, you could see it in his face, the pain in his face, the remorse in his voice. They weren't just words. He's followed through with action. So I think it was one of the great apologies.
And you're right. Steve Smith, it was terrific. And as soon as he held that press conference, he won over a lot of people. Again, I think a lot of other Australians held back though, because they know people are cynical about television to start with. They don't automatically trust what they believe. The second thing is people these days expect somebody of Steve Smith's calibre to be media trained, and it wouldn't have done him any, and a media trainer might well have said it won't do you any harm, mate, if you burst into tears, if you're really upset. So again, with Steve Smith won Australia over, I think, when he delivered on his commitments. And he's demonstrated that he's a reformed person. And by the way, he mustn't slip up again.
Absolutely.
You know, he's got to be as clean as anything.
Royal Commissions, lots going on at the moment. Greg Hunt, the Minister for Health, Royal Commission at the moment with Greg. What do you think of his public persona at the moment and the apologies there?
So, Minister Hunt was on Insiders yesterday morning on the ABC, and it was very clear that a number of the recommendations that came out of the Royal Commission, the interim report that was released last week, haven't been implemented. The thing with reports, when companies or organisations or governments know that the report is pending, you can almost always anticipate many of the recommendations, many of the results, because the reason for the Royal Commission was because there are problems. So you know what the problems are back there. So fix them ahead of the report. So A classic case, let's say you've got a religion and there's an inquiry into child sex abuse. You know what the results of an inquiry are going to be, more or less. So you know you have to speak to the victims. You have to compensate the victims. You have to have implemented a code of conduct. You've got to, you must get rid of the people who are the cause of the problem. You put a vacuum cleaner through the joint, so by the time the report comes out, you can say tick, 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 tick. It's very hard to criticise an organisation that's reformed itself before the report comes out. It's very hard to criticise a government that implements most of the recommendations, the important ones, the ones that count, before the recommendations are made public.
So a genuine reform helps a genuine apology.
Absolutely, absolutely. In a way, an apology is secondary with Australians. Australians sorry is overused in Australian society because people do have a very strong BS detector. And so you've got, in a way, implementation now, and we saw this with George Columbaris. We're going to see it with other companies that are underpaying staff. You've got to rectify the problem if you can before the apology comes, so that the apology can be seen to be genuine.
Peter, great advice. There you go. The power of the apology in corporate Australia.